All right, and we're recording. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a really wonderful Saturday night. And with that said, without further ado, let me just close this because this annoys me all the time. And without further ado, let's get down to analysis. Now, I should warn you in advance, this is going to be quite in-depth approach. So as you can see here, this is a document which I shared in the channel. Probably in the late afternoon, closer to the evening, I guess. So as you can see, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. And right, let's just start. It's true that I said I had written a similar essay, and that's why I'd like to show you what I did here, right, in terms of pretty much everything. So we will start with the general layout of this essay. We will go to the essay itself. Um, yeah, don't mention this. This is because EST is short for estimate, well, which basically means approximate score. Here we have something that I like to call argument supportive chain, right? For pretty much everything. Here you have, as you can see, the vocabulary and whatnot. But today's task two, let's focus on that. And I want to basically start on that because I want to show you how I analyze. Basically, basically, let me just write it down. Everything comes down to this part, right? Because in writing, not only in terms of IELTS writing, but basically in any kind of writing, analysis is important, right? Analysis is important, and depending on it, your essay is going to be successful. So basically, depending on the level or depending on the correctness of your analysis is going to determine whether it's going to be a well-written essay or not. And yesterday we talked about it, and I referred to analysis or tahlil, as I like to call it in Uzbek, as the key to IELTS writing test 2. So let me just show you. Okay, this video is the way I analyze essays. That's why we have here like 6 pages of stuff. By the way, I suggest that you print this out, use some, pencils, pens, highlighters, stickers, whatever is necessary for you to make down some notes and, just to basically deconstruct it by all means. So differences between countries have become less evident each year. So highlight that, right? And differences between countries. Now that's general. That's general. The next sentence is going to specify nowadays people all over the world. So we're dealing with people again, right? Shared same. Okay, advertising brands, habits, eating habits, and TV channels. Now that is also important, right? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages of these fashions, right? So that is going to be our question. And from here, we need to step one. Um, I usually say identify the main topic. What does it mean? The main topic is what we like to call um, those 25 slash 30-ish big topics in IELTS writing task 2, right? So this is what we call big or the main topic right here. Could be differences, not people definitely. These are all subtopics. So differences it is. So we're going to write about differences or similarities. Why? Because this question is actually challenging one, right? Average candidates might struggle, and if you find yourself to be one of such, don't worry. Actually, this topic puzzled me as well. I mean, it's all right. It just means that you didn't do your research. And here, if you find topics that we are suggesting on this challenge difficult, take your time. You have 24 hours to respond, right? Do your research. Use Google, ChatGPT, Claude, Bing, whatever tools that you find relevant to use. Make your research, plan your essay, and then write. Okay, this is going to be beneficial rather than just writing, some questionable essay in 40 minutes. This is what I suggest because you're going to learn a lot this way, and doing it 20 days, we'll see about that. But for now, it's 20 days. 20 days clear, right? 20 days guaranteed, actually. So, in order to make something into a habit of yours, it takes 21 days. Thus, the amount of time that this writing challenge is going to last. Hence, the duration, hence, the time frame that we chose. It was agreed, actually. So, the question type is advantages outweigh disadvantages, all right? But let's get back to differences, similarities. And by the way, I tend to sidetrack a lot because there's a lot of stuff to cover. So if you find yourself quite puzzled due to my chaotic speech, so feel free to stop, to reflect, and maybe to just reverse it to whatever time frame you find it relevant to, I guess. Differences, similarities. Why? Because it uses what we call double negative, right? It's saying less evident, and it says also differences, which kind of equals to similarities if you think about it. I think it's pretty logical. Now, step 2 of your analysis is identify your subtopics. What are subtopics? When like, for example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, questions in the IELTS were relatively easier, but, times have changed. These days, you find questions like these a lot where there's big or the main topic, and there are also a bunch of subtopics. And in order to score high, in task response, like, right, we're talking about anything starting from band 7. Actually, I'm talking about band 8 and 9 for task response, because for 8 you have to fully address the question. For 9 you have to address the question in depth. In depth means you should include something that is not mentioned in the question, but something that is going to arise when you're talking about this question. I know it didn't make sense at all, but this is so far as good as I could explain it. Right. So to score in task response, so basically these guys, right? Step 3, identify thesis possibilities. Now, what does it mean? So first of all, what is thesis? Thesis is the answer to the question in the essay prompt, right? So this is the main question that your essay is going to basically answer. Your whole essay is going to cover this question right here. I'm gonna make it light gray, um, so that you know it just it just gets highlighted, but at the same time it doesn't just distract. So we have advantages outweigh disadvantages, right? Um, I like to use ADV out this ADV. I hope you'll understand, right? Step 4. So basically we're done with the analysis of the question, and now this is actually um, stage 2. Stage 1 is question analysis. So right here, stage 1 is question analysis. And stage 2 is actually brainstorming process. Once you're done with the question, you start brainstorming. So what is brainstorming? Some people like to call it idea generation, but I like to call it brainstorming. I guess this is more, direct way of saying that. So once you're done, so this is advantages outweigh disadvantages type question, and here you identify your position. Now let me explain your position, or let's just say attitude, or your own thesis statement, right? What does it mean? It means, for example, if me, Adham Beg, or any our other mentors and coaches here are going to address this question, clearly we all gonna have different attitudes, right? For example, someone could write that advantages outweigh disadvantages. Someone could say disadvantages outweigh advantages. Someone could say, well, there are both advantages and disadvantages to this development, right? So here you try to ask yourself whether you agree or disagree, or are there more advantages or disadvantages, or is it kind of a balance between these two extremes, right? So this is it. What I did here is partially I partially stated my not my I mean partially stated advantages and focused more on disadvantages. Yeah, I'm a little bit pessimistic though. Step 5, identify slash generate 3. I'm gonna make it 3 this time, but usually I work 4. It just depends. 3 or 4. Sometimes it could be 2 as well. I will show you how that's done in another video. 3, 4 main arguments, right? Actually, we are starting working on your body paragraph. So brainstorming, body paragraphs, right? And then step 6, from here, you're going to, extend it. So elaborate on that, right? Extend and support your body paragraphs, right? Step, sorry, 7 is going to be to write an introduction, and step 8 is going to be conclusion. Now let me explain why in this order. Because um, I have been writing essays for quite a while. I can say that for sure. And during my experimental writing, I noticed that if you start with the body paragraph, it's going to be actually body paragraphs, but since you start with the one, I guess that's okay. Um, it actually turns out to be easier because I reckon that many people start with the introduction because this is the way they are taught in your generic IELTS standard groups or whatever. But what I like to do and what I teach my students to do is to start with the body paragraph. And it's so much easier. Why? Because body paragraphs are, in fact, what the examiners are going to check thoroughly. They're going basically to assess how well you can present arguments, how relevant are your arguments in the framework of this particular essay question, right? And the ways you build on those arguments, the vocabulary do you use, your grammar, and the way you connect ideas, the way you connect the whole essay, the way you connect your body paragraphs, and blah, blah, blah. We can talk forever about writing, but clearly we're not. Step 9, editing and refining. Step 10. Step 10 is going to be when you submit, right? Submission, and you get your feedback session where whether it's your IELTS instructor, whether it's someone else gives you feedback. And most people stop here, and it makes sense because there are 10 steps to it, right? But there's also this super secret step, step 11, where you get your essay back, you edit it again, so you basically fix all your mistakes, mentioned in the feedback, and write a clean version. Now, what is clean version? A clean version is a version that does not contain mistakes, well, to the best of your skill, right? So the clean version is where you actually correct all your mistakes, and it is supposedly, and it is likely to get a higher score, right? And actually, I can make it to 12 steps. 12 steps. Step number 2 is actually creating your own writing / essay database. Now, what does it mean? It doesn't really matter whether you write it in hand or you just type your essay. I think many people nowadays use their laptops and PCs and whatever. Just make sure you are consistent enough. I'm sorry, I have to change my position here. Basically, many people stop at stage 10, but there are 2 extra steps to it, right? So creating your own writing or essay database is, if you write it in hand, make sure you get a clean notebook, or it doesn't really matter. Should be comfortable to you. It's actually up to you. Just make sure you keep a separate notebook, a separate, Microsoft Office, a separate channel where there's only you yourself. Doesn't really matter the way you do it, but it should be consistent, and it should be done in a precise way. Just keep in mind to do that, right? And you're going to collect all your clean versions there, right? In the long term, in the long run, this is going to benefit you because you're going to see your progression. You start noticing that these clean versions get even cleaner, and you can see how you start to spot some mistakes in your previous clean versions, and you can refine them even more. In fact, this is what we do. When I say we, I clearly mean instructors too, right? For example, I have this essay of mine about obesity, which I've been writing pretty much every year with my standard groups, right? And it gets cleaner and cleaner, and it has reached this moment where it just can't get any cleaner because that looks extremely well, at least to my eye, at least to my liking, right? And once you're done with the test, and I hope that all of the participants will get really decent scores, especially in writing section, since we are all here for writing. Um, this is going to benefit maybe your best friend, maybe your relative, sibling, doesn't really matter. So you can share your essay database with someone else, and you're actually going to benefit from that. And those people are going to benefit, right? Let's make this IELTS community, friendlier, I guess, because I sense certain amount of hostility, like among the candidates who are preparing, but clearly I don't like it that much. We talked about this 12 steps, right? So this is basically what you do in writing. We have started from stage one, question analysis, right? And then we have stage two, brainstorming. And then we have stage three right here, which is active writing. So I guess that is quite self-explanatory. Active writing is when you write actively a lot. So conclusion. So this is stage four, refinement process, right? um I could just make them stage five, but I don't really want to, because it's just refinement process and it's just part of it. But that part which many people lack conviction to do, or lack, I don't know, consistency, I guess. Or instructors don't even mention it. They just provide feedback and don't mention that you should actually work on those mistakes, and you should keep another separate notebook or another separate Word file or whatever, and just copy the clean version there. And from time to time, again, you just have to make sure you read it, right? So that you keep your ideas, um, so that you know your own essay. Sometimes I'm like reading my own essays. At this point, I'm like Lil Wayne. I read my own essays and I'm like, who wrote this? And when I look at the author, usually leave certain like signatures in my essays to pinpoint for myself that it was written by me. And when I realized that it was written by me, I'm like, now I understand why this is well written and why I like it so much. Okay, because I have like several essay databases. I mean, I have essay databases on my own IELTS / multi-level prep app. I have another essay database on my Telegram channel, another database here on the Microsoft Office Word servers, another database on my phone's notes, actually, on my phone notes. Right. Some essays are just still there. And I wrote today's essay just right there as well. Right. So this is it. Now, layout. Right. So BP1, so BP1 is actually about business. So when I say business, let's get back here. Argument supportive chain, something that I came up with myself. I'm not really sure whether others use this or not, but it just helps. I mean, students have been reporting that it's very helpful. That's why I've been doing it. So advertising and brands I just took as business, eating habits and TV channels as culture. So instead of writing on four separate, subtopics, I just generalize them. And this makes it very close to this essay question right here. Some people think that the increasing business and cultural contact between countries bring many positive effects. It causes the loss of national identities. The only difference is that the question that we have just talked about does not cover this part, because this one is discuss your both views and give your own opinion. And this is actually excerpt from my book called Karamov Method, a method that I use on my own, a method that I teach my students to do. It's a little bit of complicated stuff because it focuses on pretty much everything, right? So this is discussion essay, but it fits the topic well. So my argument one is enhanced supply and demand chains. Supply and demand chains is actually here in the vocabulary section. Supply and demand, the network of suppliers and customers needed to deliver goods and services, right? In Uzbek, we call it talab wa taklif, if you are really good at economy, right? This is coming at the level of B2, but it's used in economics, right? This is really good collocation, especially for your writing test 2 and speaking part 3. So you're very welcome to use it. Lead to mutual benefits, both for producer and customer countries, right? So countries benefit from that. Tax-free trading treaties. This is very good stuff right here. Tax-free trading treaties, right? There are a lot of T's, and what I like actually to do, I like to take the first letter of the first word and then make sure other words start with the same letter. We usually call it alliteration, right, in stylistics. So examiners clearly are going to notice this, and clearly you will give a hint to the examiner that this is written by someone who knows a thing or two in writing, who is coming from a solid background in terms of linguistics. The effect. This boosts economic output, leading to more affordable goods for consumers and higher profits for businesses. Okay. Argument 2, culture. Intercultural communication and diversity are fostered through closer contact between countries. Example, overcoming of culture shock. Actually, what I noticed when I was reading Atambek's essay, I noticed that we pretty much got the same argument, but I called it by its name. Atambek also referred to it, but he didn't say culture shock, which actually surprised me because I expected him to, but he just, phrased it in his own wording, which I think is really cool. And I believe you're going to see a lot of that from us. As people adjust more easily to foreign environment by finding their familiar cultural elements abroad. Effect. Ethnic minorities living abroad for work or study feel more comfortable and integrated, easing adaptation to foreign environments and reducing cultural isolation. Good. Body paragraph 2. Business. Global corporations often take over local businesses, negatively impacting local economies. This is actually the paragraph which we have discussed yesterday, so if you don't mind, I will just skip this part, right? Because we saw this yesterday, right? And I'm gonna do it right now, and let's start with the introduction. Introduction is quite interesting, actually. As the world becomes unprecedentedly united, again, alliteration, right? One of my signature moves. Unprecedentedly united through business and culture, an ethical dilemma has risen. Now, this is quite uncommon sentence structure, right? And this is why it reads kind of differently, at least. So, as is the key element here. Um, so, if you're really good with your grammar, you know that as can be used both for reason and for time, right? So as can be used for the reason and time. I mean, in uh, reason and time clauses, right? Then that's why I decided to use as, because it's multifunctional. And here, you can't really tell which one it is, right? So it kind of creates this blend between time and reason. That's why I took as here. See, attention to very small details like this. An ethical dilemma has arisen. Now, this is, you wouldn't actually see something like this. And this is what I like about it. Because this is also a sentence, but this comes after as, right? Uh, Listen, people usually write like this. An ethical dilemma has arisen as the world becomes. This is boring. I changed it all. I just changed the order, right? Some people believe. Now, listen, this is where it gets even interesting. Some people believe that this development brings numerous advantages in both directions. So, in both directions, right? It means both for producer and the buyer and whatnot, simply. I, however, contend that such close contact between countries can adversely affect local businesses and cultures. What I did right here is actually, you may say, wait a minute, there are three sentences. Where's your thesis statement? This is my thesis statement. I just split it into, instead of making one complex sentence, right? Using, for example, while, or sometimes number two option is although, right? I, let me just write, instead of while slash although, split into, I split it into sentences. Why? Because it's easier to read and to digest rather than turning it into, a complex sentence using while. Because if you use while, I think you're going to lose from coherence and cohesion. Well, at least this is what I thought when I was writing, so I made sure um, to play it safe here, right? So, on the one hand, or I said on one hand, there's the article missing, but that's okay. I mean, it does not have any effect on the intelligibility, I mean, the readability, so that is permissible, even at the highest level. The growing business and cultural interaction between nations can yield numerous benefits. The increasing business contact between nations strengthens supply and demand chains, benefiting both the producer and customer countries, right? We saw this. For example, tax-free trading treaties allow this right here. And another of my signature move is I like using complex noun clauses, right? Um, why? Instead of using just basic sentences or verb structures, using noun clauses is way more efficient. It just, eradicates and eliminates It just helps you to get rid of redundancy. Redundancy is when there's a better way of saying that, but you say it, using a lot of words. This is actually what Ben 7 slash 6.5 ish users would do at this point. Smoother cross border transactions. Again, complex noun phrase. And pay attention, this is the second word or second adjective, right? Not adjective. I mean, clearly is the stress on the first syllable. Tax-free cross border. I like using these kind of words, right? I'm not sure how they're called. They're not compound, or are they? I'm not really good with my morphology here, so help me out on this, guys. Leading to higher economic output. Higher economic output, again, and lower consumer prices, again. See how many complex noun phrases I have used in this sentence alone. Moreover, the cultural exchange that accompanies such business growth. Exchanges, oh, okay. Exchanges, okay. Intercultural communication and diversity. I'm going to highlight foster. The overcoming of culture shock is one benefit. Instead of saying, for example, I just bold, I just went direct, I just said is one benefit, right? And I guess this is the second time I'm using as, but you wouldn't really see this. It's not noticeable. People adjust more easily to foreign environments by finding familiar cultural elements abroad. This is particularly beneficial. I said benefit above, and this is beneficial. Now, this is something, that really, skillful writers do. Instead of looking for tons of synonyms, you just take one word and change the word form. This is how you play it safe and you make sure you don't run out of words. For ethnic minorities are people who live in different countries, but who are not obviously native, right? Who may feel more at home, while working or studying abroad. Again, I used as because it's seamless, If I used because or for or given, it would be, more noticeable. I like to make it subtle at this point. They can find familiar cultural elements, easing adaptation and reducing cultural isolation. But we know this. We discussed this yesterday on the live stream. So if you will, I'm gonna just skip that and I'm gonna go to conclude because conclusion is also interesting. I'm gonna show you how I write conclusions and pay attention. Conclusion looks like a paragraph of its own, which it is. And keep in mind that one sentence paragraphs are straight coherence and cohesion band 7. This is coming from a verified source, guys. One sentence conclusions are a no-no. Remember that. At least two sentences. It means at least two full stops in your conclusion, right? Now I got 3 here. Although, the reason why, let me just explain. The reason why I split my introduction into in the beginning was because so that I can use although, not while, because everyone uses while in their introduction and conclusion. I want to play different, so I used although in the conclusion. This is some, I don't know, next level of, foreshadowing, whatever, precognition stuff. This is actually what a really planned out writing is, and this is what a mindful writer does. And if you practice your writing, You will get to the level where you start planning things way before, right, when you write it. And usually this happens, I don't know, in a matter of several minutes, actually. It's not a big deal. It sounds complicated, but all it takes is just, some time and practice. That's it. If you are going to work, let's just go here. If you are going to work in this framework, I am convinced that you will get there, right? Just make sure you follow all those 12 steps that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. International trade and shared cultures. I call it international trade and shared cultures. Bring certain socio-economic benefits. Well, I am not sure I saw these kind of words. These are usually very formal words to describe the theme of the essay, but I use it nevertheless because it fits so well. Again, I am convinced that such close interstate cooperation, interstate, between states cooperation, may pose economic and cultural threats. This, the solution, I'm providing my own solution. And discuss both views and give your opinion essay. You might say, Mr. Karamov, are you crazy? And I will say, no. But listen, the reason why it's done here is because I thought cultural threats, if I stopped right here, this would leave a question. Okay, you said there are some threats. So what is the solution to prevent them? That's why the sentence is here. Lines between these two extremes are probably one of my favorite phrases. Fostering international relations while minimizing the concomitant consequences. Concomitant consequences. Сопутствующие consequences, right? I'm sorry, I'm just super tired. So at this point, don't mind me incorporating several languages at once. This way, right? This is very natural, just two words, but instead of saying as a result, in certain contexts, I'm not saying that this is universal stuff, in only certain contexts. Instead of saying as a result or therefore, you can use this way because it's more natural. Countries can flourish without harming each other's economy and culture. Do you feel that this essay kind of makes sense because the discussion is finished? At least I do. And when I read like 95% of essays, I feel like there's something to say, especially in the conclusion, which they don't say, right? But this is somehow feels like this discussion is closed. Hence the estimated IELTS ban. Well, at least from our perspective. This is argument supportive chain. This is your main argument, and this is the kind of supportive sentences: reason, example, and result. So argument, reason, example, result, right? So again, this one is kind of uses the full chain: argument, reason, example, result, explanation. This is full chain. Second paragraph: argument, reason, example, explanation, result. See how I change them, right? Now, I'm not really sure. At this point, I am into speculative analysis. I'm just speculating. I'm not really sure whether examiners are going to, assess it that deep. But since writing is also subjective, yes, it is. Spoiler alert. I think some examiners might want to look into something like this, like how you use your main arguments and how you know, support them, and whether you're giving it in the same way again and again, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times, or maybe you're bringing some variation to the table. um, Argument, reason, example, result, explanation. I think we have this: reason, example, result, explanation, right? I used it in body paragraph 1. That's why it kind of feels similar, right? And right here you have all the vocabulary laid out specifically for you, right? This is all the vocabulary. Make sure you cover it because there are a lot of really good words. You see the levels themselves yourself. There are no C2 words though, and it's okay. In order to get band 9 in lexical resource, you don't have to, you know, incorporate like super sophisticated words. I'm usually between B1 to C1 range, depending on the topic. Sometimes I write A1 to, for example, B2. The language, of course, depends on the topic. Since the topic itself is difficult, I decided to went for a difficult topic, but you don't, right? Remember that the best writers are able to talk about difficult stuff without actually referring to all of these. At this point, I admit that this is all extravaganza, but in my own defense, I can say this is for educational purposes only, right? So yeah, this is it. Um, Quite a video, quite a walkthrough it's been, right? So this is the essay itself. Um, this is the layout, right? You have vocabulary. We talked about steps. So I think that will do for day 1. So thank you very much, guys. Wow. At this point, it's a lesson of its own. What a bonus. What a Saturday, right? Now I'm going to go because, oh, wow, it's already too late. I need to run some errands before midnight. Make sure you have awesome weekends. Work on your writing. Create your own, you know, writing database or writing collection, right? Maybe we will get to see your books as well. This is just an excerpt from mine, if you are interested, of course. But keep working on your writing because writing is important. Writing also disciplines your mind. Writing is actually very useful, especially for your mental agility and mental health. So practice writing, practice, you know, academic writing like this, and try to incorporate some creative writing. For example, journaling. I suggest journaling. You actually get better if you journal, right? Journaling is just, you know, keeping the track of what you've done throughout the day, every day. And this is how you stay consistent in writing. You don't have you don't have to think it over. It could be, you know, just in a simple plain language. There are no limits. You can use even slur words if you want, if you're comfortable with that. Although I do not support that as a teacher, but as a person, I can totally get it. This is your kind of journal, and no one gets to read it. It's just for you. It's just to, you know, to flush out all that negativity. You know, don't keep that negativity. Keep it positive. Day 1 is down. We get 19 to go, and I hope I'll see you all, you know, in the end. And I'll see you at the top. Thank you very much. It's been Katamov and Katamov out.